Episode 78 is titled Two Brothers, and yes, if there is no recap, no cold open, no anything, you know this episode's going to be insane, and this one is just unrelenting start to finish. As for the title itself, I think it has three primary meanings, and if your tolerance for overanalysis is just a tad higher, then also a fourth one. First off, the obvious, there's Eren and Zeke around whom the entire episode revolves around. For characters like Yelena, this is pretty much a prophetic or almost religious experience, and so the episode is not about Ymir, who actually makes all this happen. No, it's about the two brothers. And still speaking of Eren and Zeke, the fact that they are in fact brothers continues to accentuate that theme of inheritance that we see all throughout the story. Both of them are Grisha's sons. Both of them have been oppressed for as long as they've been alive, but it's in their unity that we will see just how different they are. But again, this is Attack on Titan, so the title has multiple meanings. We also have the Grice brothers, Colt and Falco, who function as a counterweight of sorts to Eren and Zeke and that whole I want to save my little brother angle. And yet another pair of brothers in this episode is of course Porco and Marcel, with whom we also have that same angle of inheritance and also saving their little sibling. So we have these three times two brothers who all have very different interpretations of what it means to save their little sibling and a loved one in general. Plenty more on these throughout the episode because man, Isayama was riding fire with this. And the final, slightly more over-analysis interpretation is, of course, Eren and Reiner. Throughout Season 4, and really the entire series, we have had this back and forth of how their story started and where they'll eventually end up. And in Liberio, we already saw a very similar moment of unity as we'll see in this episode. Reiner was begging Eren for judgments, but Eren refused, and instead offered him sympathy and understanding. And so, with them too, we have this bizarre brotherly dynamic where, once upon a time, it was Reiner teaching Eren how to be strong, but now it's kind of flipped all the way back, and we have Eren offering him sympathy and understanding for what is probably the first time. Only, in this episode, it's kind of less so unity, and more so a tragic brother who is forced to kill the other because he's gone insane. So, yeah. Moving into the episode, we immediately hear the drums of war. Again, this episode is just firing on all cylinders, and so we open with Zeke's Titan already crashing to the ground, before cutting to Eren, who is pretty much trying to swat away both Porco and Reiner. Interestingly though, he looks like he's actually going for kill shots rather than wearing Porco down and attempting to capture the Titan. At this point, he could have just crouched down and chomped on old Porkchop, but instead, he keeps bashing at his nape, which isn't even hardened. If you really wanted to overanalyze, I suppose you could say that it's some kind of subconscious memory shenanigans that keep him from eating him, because, you know, there's the whole Falco stuff. But really, I just think it's as simple as him just assuming that a kill shot will be cleaner and, more importantly, faster. At this point, there's no point in capturing more Titans. The Founding Titan trumps all of them anyway. Peak just bashing one of the Jaegerists with a cannon goes unfathomably hard, but man, that has to be like top 5 worst ways to go. He probably got his entire ribcage crushed into his lungs. Can you imagine the excruciating pain for like every single second of your remaining life as you just plummet to your death? That is one big certified yikes. Meanwhile on the streets, it's just a complete bloodbath, as we see Armin's squad and Pixis' newly formed resistance all trying to fight for the high ground. Zeke took out the airships that had all the machine guns, which is obviously a huge deal for the home defenders. But Paradis is still pretty significantly outgunned because of the Jaegerists' coup. So at this point, it really is just super scrappy urban combat. Plot-wise though, it's just moving the Armin faction and all the wine enjoyers to where they need to be for the big climax. Armin will be aura farming in this episode though, so keep that in mind. As everything continues to just spiral into madness, Reiner is grappling with Eren again, repeatedly calling out to Porco and telling him to wake up. And as he does, Porco is zapped with memories. Before we talk about the narrative weight of this, I want to dwell a bit more on the mechanics of these particular memories. Functionally, they were already a part of Porco. He inherited them the moment he got the jaw, so their existence is nothing out of the ordinary. What is interesting is the catalyst for those memories. It is just contact with an ally, a bond, or some might even call it a connection. Beyond just usual memory shenanigans and storytelling purposes, I think this is the same underlying desire of Ymir's that also allowed for the bizarre Freckles Ymir memory transfer through the letter in Season 2. Historia is a royal, so she already has weird memory buffs. But through human connection, that message, that desire to protect and save, transcends space and time. It's Ymir's desires that are manifested through the paths, the point at which everything meets. And so, in their final moments, Porco does remember, because there was human connection. Or, you could also just read it as ECM wanting to give us closure with the character story, because that's usually how people write things. So, I don't know, up to you. But the narrative weight of this is also really, really special. Ever since we met Porco, he has been kind of a smartass. He constantly beefs with Reiner, constantly brings up his trauma, and pretty much directs all of his own bitterness and pain at exclusively him. He has spent his entire lifetime haunted by the thought of his brother dying alone on that island, of the thought that Reiner was picked over him and couldn't do a single thing to protect him. Porco was too weak to protect his brother. And as Reiner was the only one to return, that bitterness only grew. But it's in this moment that he finally learns he was right. Reiner was never meant to be picked. Marcel convinced Marley to pick him over Porco, not because he was weak or otherwise inferior, but because he loved him and wanted to protect him. It was an act of brotherly love that saved him from the cruel fates of Reiner's squad. A true, selfless sacrifice that Marcel surely knew Porco would never understand had he explained it earlier. And just before we see the end of that thought, Zeke, another older brother, readies himself to summon Titans to protect Eren. And just before we see the end of that thought, Colt, yet another older brother, calls out to Zeke, and we get the shot of a very explicit crossroads between saving Eren and a little child. Colt says that he never truly knew Zeke, but that he doesn't think he dragged kids into this. Brother to brother, he tells him that he doesn't care about his plan, just begging him to let Falco get out of range. Like we talked about a few episodes prior, it really is unclear what the range of that is. So, in this case, I think Zeke really is weighing the failure of his plan altogether versus transforming Falco. Considering all of Shiganshina has transformed, that range must be very, very big. So even with a horse, Zeke would have to somehow buy them at least 20 to 30 minutes, which not exactly likely. I mean, look around. In terms of their personal narratives, for Colt, this really is just a basic human plea. Marley, Paradis, Titans, warriors, the bullets whizzing by their heads, it all fades away, and all that remains is an older brother begging to protect his sibling. But because this is ECM, we go another layer deeper, because Zeke's dilemma is about saving his younger brother. He wants to save him and himself from their father's torments, from the burden he forced onto them. He wants to save all of them from the suffering of life altogether. But in that lies a contradiction. How can he be this enlightened savior when he is about to condemn a child? How many more lives can he write off to this greater good? Clearly, at least one more. Okay, number one, I know this is super dark, but this is like the coolest thing, like seriously ever. The shot of this tiny, tiny Falco embracing Colt as this primordial ball of lightning forms within Zeke is so cool. And the almost Celtic sounding bagpipes as all time stops are so cool. And then suddenly that complete cascade of beams light up as everyone begins to transform is also, say it with me now, so cool. It is a mortifying sight, and also where we absolutely need either a Marley prequel or a Great Titan War prequel. Marley has done this like dozens of times already, and can you even imagine the kind of stuff that they got into during the Great Titan War? Sign me up. Also, big F's in chat for Pixis. Drinking was indeed the end of him. And very fittingly, as Titans begin to swarm Shiganshina, we go all the way back to the ever-familiar Colossal's theme. But before we move on, while Falco gets transformed into a mindless pure Titan, he still serves an incredibly important narrative purpose. Firstly, Colt is burned to a crisp as he continues to hold on to his little brother. It is yet another example of that cruel but beautiful world that they find themselves in. In that final moment, there was no fear, no attempt at running away, no final plea, no final words. There was just a quiet embrace, even as his world burned to ash. And secondly, there is what Falco represents. His story has always been about that innocence that is caught in the crossfire of war. He rushes into the battlefield to protect Gabby. He sends Eren's letters simply because he wanted to help a wounded man. He tears himself limb from limb in an attempt to surpass Gabby and save her from becoming a Titan. He follows her to Paradis and tries to protect her every step of the way. But in the end, he, a helpless, unarmed child embracing his older brother, a true symbol of innocence, is literally absorbed by the chaos of war. That innocence turning into a mindless machine for destruction, just like everything else. And that just continues as Falco launches at his cool Uncle Reiner, mindlessly gnawing at the nape of the person who meant so much to him. Meanwhile, the war is of course still raging, with Magath repeatedly taking shots at Zeke. But what's far cooler here is Armin zooming in and hitting them with a Thunder Spear. Crazy unappreciated strike, by the way. They actually got past all the Marleyan soldiers, managed to get all the way up to peak without getting their ribcages bashed in, and he got a clean, direct hit in. Considering Armin is not usually the one making all these flashy attacks, it's a crazy feat. And also, I'm pretty sure Magath should have been cooked here, both literally and figuratively. The armored cage PCAS is, well, a cage. It's not like a fully enclosed tank shell. Getting hit with a Thunder Spear should 1. Destroy him with shrapnel, 2. Set off all the artillery shells they have in storage, which 3. Should have literally cooked him to death, assuming he isn't blown apart by the cascading explosions of the artillery shells. There is a tiny chance that the shells might not have gone off if they have like a distinct arming mechanism or something. I mean, they didn't blow up when Zeke handled them, but this is a direct hit from a Thunder Spear, and I'm pretty sure that would have turned the whole thing into fireworks, and Magath should have been like dead 10 times over. Like, it's actually crazy. He has more plot armor than Levi. It's crazy to think about. That being said, I think we need to forgive everyone for not really caring about all this, because all of that is immediately overshadowed by Mikasa, who is going in melee. Like, sorry Armin, I know you're always getting overlooked in these fights, but this is just way cooler. I'm sorry, I don't write the rules. But with that, it is time we return to cinema. As Zeke's body begins to fade, Reiner just says that it's over. Eren can't use the Founding Titan anymore. And that shot of Gabby, a tiny speck in the midst of this chaos, just watching as Reiner resigns, is, oh my god, so beautiful. This is it for Reiner. His one last fight to save who he can save. Gabby will live a long life. He and Falco saved her. But as he closes his eyes, we cut to Porco. He now knows the truth of what it means to be an older brother, one worthy of the warrior title. A brother who will do anything to protect his younger sibling. In his last moments, he is finally at peace. He mirrors his brother's sacrifice. He saves Reiner and ensures that a child never has to carry the burden of mindlessly chomping away at one of his most important people. In the midst of that final jab at Reiner is a true act of love and camaraderie, just like all the Jaw Titans that came before him. Which, by the way, yes, I do find it somewhat odd that every single Jaw Titan died in a truly selfless sacrifice and a belief that their death will help or outright save a loved one. This is not even a 2 nickels situation, it is a 3 nickels situation. But as yet another ally dies, Reiner just rages, immediately turning to Eren and, well, demolishing him. Problem is, Eren pulls a Annie and starts sprinting towards Zeke, who has also yoinked a technique from Peak. You might call the Jaeger brothers plagiarists, but I prefer to call it callbacks. As Eren runs, we get this very cool sequence of the skies raging above him as his squad starts raining down Thunder Spears. That is, until all time stops. And suddenly, the Chekhov's 50 cal anti-Titan gun goes off. The shot of Zeke's eye as Eren's head flies is absolutely gorgeous, and oh my god, the fact that I managed to watch this unspoiled was insane. Granted, I never expected nor believed that Eren would die, but I mean, still, getting his head blown off, even if I know that he's going to somehow, transform or whatever, was still, a little bit intense. And the thing is, Mappa at least wasn't as evil as Isayama himself, because in the manga, the chapter literally just ended right here. No idea how you all survived that one, by the way. I mean, I would assume that most people were like, yeah, he's not gonna die, but still. Even rewatching the series and knowing that Eren is obviously perfectly fine and everything is going to plan, seeing him just one shot like this was absolutely crazy to witness. And while I say Mappa isn't quite as evil as Isayama, they are still just a little bit evil, because we then cut to the Midcard detailing Zeke's scream, as if that's going to help us now. Jokes aside, he just repeats the whole mechanic of him being able to control pure titans regardless of their own will. Again though, unfortunately, we don't really have any concrete details on the range or duration of it. It must be pretty expansive considering the Titan stumbled out of the forest to save Zeke, but we don't really have any details beyond that. It seems that both the range and the control duration are very big because the whole Utgard stuff and all that happened, but we don't really know for sure.
Years I have spent in this place, waiting for you to subscribe. Why are you still not subscribed? Oh my god, this is the dumbest thing I've done in my life. Oh my god.
Returning to the episode, we go back in time to Zeke and Eren's conversation in Liberia we saw in episode 74. Only this time, it is of course hugely recontextualized. Just like episode 74, he recounts the memories he got in the Crystal Catacombs, of how his father crushed them like bugs, of how the vow of renouncing war doomed them. Zeke gets emotional, saying he'd love to shake his hand, but that it's best to avoid contact, and instead throws him the ball. Only this time, the scene continues, and the ball rolls on the floor. Eren starts murmuring about how he is sluggish, but we focus on Zeke, with his mouth slightly agape, watching Eren as he picks up the ball. A haunting buzzing now filling the scene. I've been memeing about the scene for so long that I think we've pretty much covered everything here, but yes, only Isayama can create the biggest plot twist of a series by a character not catching a baseball. Like, imagine explaining this to someone. So, there's this guy who doesn't catch a baseball, and that literally means that he is actually betraying his brother, and he wants to have an ancient Norse god power to start Ragnarok. It's crazy. In terms of overanalysis though, I think this scene is very much themes and vibes over strict realism. I don't think Eren is actively rejecting the ball, nor do I think he is in any way sluggish and actually doesn't catch it. Like, I don't think there is a decision not to catch the ball to, like, spite Zeke or something. I think this is just Isayama wanting a cool symbolic scene of Eren rejecting a handshake without it being an obvious rejection of a handshake. And I'll gladly accept that, because I'd be lying if I said that I don't think this is like one of the coolest scenes in the entire series. Like, again, not catching a baseball, and that's like a huge twist. I love it. But with that, we return to Shiganshina, the memory of that conversation prying itself into Zeke's mind as all time stops. I love the pseudo 3D moments that are captured in time here, especially as we pan through the streets and toward the headless Eren with this ominous chanting in the background. It sounds like Diablo, and I love it. Okay, now, I hate fun. Weird thing to say, I know, but that's an important bit of contextual information to know before we talk about this next sequence. I hate fun. There will be no fun in my grim and realistic story. There will be no ha-ha funny fourth wall break. No, there will be no fun. So with that said, the moment Eren's head makes contact with Zeke, the circuit of causality is completed, and he is blasted by memories of everything, everywhere. It starts with Mikasa in episode 1. This is the moment where he wakes up from that long dream, and she asks if he has been crying. It is the start and end of his loop. In between the memories, we see this absolutely beautiful close-up on Eren's emerald green eye. One thing that's still rattling around my head though is the 9 lights that are in a circle and the one that's in the middle. They don't change in between the blinks, so this isn't any kind of countdown or collection of memories that are going on or anything like that. If it were just 9 lights, it'd be the 9 titans, but the 10th one kinda breaks that. unless it is 9 titans and the middle is supposed to be sort of the point of connection or a single whole. But that seems like mental gymnastics, so I also doubt that. The only thing that kinda sorta works here is that these are the 10 people of his squad. Freckles, Ymir, Historia, Sasha, Jean, Connie, Armin, Mikasa, Annie, Reiner, and Bitcoin make 10. We know that through the eyes of a Titan, people appear as this small glimmering light, so if the 9 were his friends and the one in the middle was obviously Mikasa, that seems to fit. And while it fits, I still think it's a major stretch. I think it's just meant to look cool and that's it. He blinks, then seeing a shot of Reiner. This kinda sorta looks like a shot from the Keep Moving Forward flashback, but it's not quite one-to-one. Still, I would say it's probably meant to be that, considering, and this sounds kinda funny to say, we don't really have many other scenes of Reiner smiling. He blinks again, now seeing Grisha's point of view as Faye runs behind him. This is that day, the day they went beyond the wall and Faye died, the day that set Grisha on this path. Except for all the causality shenanigans, watch the season 3 video for that. He blinks again, seeing the same memory of Frida brushing her hair in the mirror, a memory he already saw in episode 42 as he awoke in the Crystal Catacombs. This one's important, so put a pin in that for now. He blinks again, now seeing Reiner in episode 64 just begging to die. But then, those memories fade away and he catches a glimpse of a young Armin carrying a book of the outside world. He follows him, he blindly chases after that dream, only to be met with the royal family in the Crystal Catacombs. That book, that dream of the outside world, is suddenly overwhelmed by a blood-red mist, his world violently turning sideways. We zoom past Levi, then Connie sticking fingers in Sasha's nose, which, of course, then Falco, and then a shot of a Marleyan soldier approaching a family with a pot of something. This is where the manga is a better source, because the anime is super blurry for that fragment, and we don't really see the hands on the sides of the closets. Yes, that is Kruger watching his family burned with, presumably, some kind of oil or otherwise flammable liquid. Which, yikes. As his world continues to spin, the red mist coalesces into the skull of the Colossal peeking over the wall, which is very cool and very ominous, but that then transitions into Reiner, Levi, and Jean, and a bunch of others chilling in a sauna. Okay, I told you I hate fun. I don't like this. This is too much tomfoolery for Attack on Titan. Also, important lore here, Latvian and Japanese sauna culture is way closer to each other than like the US and Japan. I know a lot of people personally who are obsessed with their weekly or even daily saunas to the point of me being convinced that this is a cult. So yes, I have beef with this scene in particular. Isayama has joked about how his next project after Attack on Titan is opening an onsen with the tears of his readers, and there are countless other illustrations of the characters also chilling in a sauna, so I just don't understand why everyone is obsessed with saunas. They are not good. I hate them. It's not pleasant. And Isayama, this is not canon. You know it's not canon. There will be no tomfoolery in my lore, and especially not a goddamn sauna. Okay, actually, I have extremely low blood pressure, so saunas kinda practically kill me. That's why I beef with them, and have spent my entire life arguing against what, again, feels like a cult. It is literally an oven cooking you alive. Even if my blood pressure didn't make me faint the moment I opened the door, there is still nothing pleasurable about this. It is just hot and miserable. There is nothing good about a sauna. Not a dry sauna, not a wet sauna, no sauna. All of them are not good, and I will have no tomfoolery in Attack on Titan. Anyway, as Eren continues his flight through memories, he catches a brief glimpse of Ramsey. Importantly, he doesn't look nearly as beat up or wounded as we see later in the series, or I guess earlier in the series, so this must either be a memory from the very first time he saw him, or maybe it's a future memory during the rumbling. That being said, in the manga, we see Eren's hands, so I think it's supposed to be that same conversation, it's just that his wounds seem a little bit tuned down. But very fittingly, as we fly through Ramsey's eye, we transition to Grisha after the Crystal Catacombs, just screaming out to him. That then transitions into the weird canyon area thingy where he dies, with Falco swooping in. This is very much just a chaotic causal loop of the start and end all in one. We see the horrors of the Crystal Catacombs and that entire horrific causal loop that we see there with Eren and Grisha. We see Ramsey, the single personification of the horrors of the rumbling that Eren commits, and we see on a very personal level. And we also see the very end of the story. As the key flies past, we see a shocked Astoria, which is probably when he tells her about the rumbling. In the manga, you also see a young Astoria from Frida's perspective, which I think you could see as another reason why Eren insisted on protecting her so much. The Founding Titan's memories always bled through time. We saw that with or without royal blood. So his decision-making regarding Astoria in particular might rather be a reflection of Frida's will more so than it is his own. He always had a natural drive to protect her, so maybe that is also just Frida and not really him. And again, lock in because I hate fun. We also see Goth Mikasa and the professional cinema critic Nerdy Armin. I do not like this, not one bit. If you are a true overanalysis enjoyer, the one and only conclusion you can draw from this scene is that Attack on Titan is a historical film. I am being serious. The fact that the post-credits movie scene exists means that this is 100% canon. This is not a joke. This means that it is a movie, and it is one universe. Now, I know many of you will be saying we need to get Korotos back to his bed, but I don't write the rules. If you write in an alternate universe scene, or in this case I guess a single universe scene, well actually no because we also see the sauna scene, so an alt universe scene, I'm just here to analyze it. You made it canon, not me. 0 out of 10, this is why I dropped the final season.
But this also means that everything they say about a potential sequel is a Chekhov's gun, meaning there will be Attack on Titan 2.
Okay, but like actually for real, I am only half joking when I say that I genuinely don't like this goofy fanservice-y stuff that we see in the episodes. This is supposed to be one of the biggest twists in the entire final arc. Adding in fourth wall breaks massively shifts that delicate dance that Attack on Titan has always been about. The reason why the Reiner reveal, the Kruger reveal, or Liberio all blew our minds was because they were all walking a knife's edge with how they manipulate every second of our attention. Even if it is for a split second, throwing in a unrelated Easter egg forever shifts that balance. On every single rewatch, you can't help but think about the fact that Nerd Armin and Goth Mikasa are in there. It's a fun little goofy fact that you will forever be aware of, when you shouldn't be. In the grand scheme of things, obviously it doesn't matter one bit, like you're rewatching the series, you already know all the memes and everything, but I think the fact that you will know it's there and that it does shift your perspective on it is also undeniable. I know most people don't care, but like I said, I hate fun. I think having these fourth wall breaks destroys immersion because it no longer is a story, it is a product that has been made and is deliberately pandering to the audience. Even if it's something that doesn't matter, even if it's something very small, it is still destroying immersion. I don't like it. And now the rest of the sequence, oh my god, Mappa cooked so hard, this is like the coolest thing I've seen in my life. And so, we fly and fly, wings spread out over the sea, until finally, he catches up to Ymir. I love that sound effect. It is so ethereal and so otherworldly and so magical. But as we see the paths, we also see that Zeke is chained up. The moments he entered the paths, he most likely saw that memory. That conversation with Eren and how he didn't catch the ball. These chains are his final test. Also, this is where causality and flow of time in general gets all kinds of weird and messed up. Eren suddenly has different clothes, yet his hair is pretty much the same. Zeke, on the other hand, is still missing his clothes, but his hair and beard have grown by at least weeks, if not months. Ditto for his nails, which, I really appreciate the attention to detail and realism, Mappa, but oof, that's crazy. I could go like 15 layers deep into overanalyzing and start drawing links to how their appearance matches their own mental image of themselves, because I do think that's kind of what the paths are all about. That's why Ymir is still a little girl slave, and then why later Eren appears in the paths as also a little kid, because that's when this all started. But I think we'll leave that for overanalyzing Attack on Titan. I do think the paths are like a mental representation of who they are, but it's too much to yap about. And speaking of the flow of time, Zeke says that it has felt like years, which I guess mentally, it very well could have been. These are the paths after all. But really, I think he just spent a long time stewing on that talk with Eren and Liberio. I think that is when his hair and beard grew and not actually just Ymir rebuilding Eren as he woke up. I think all of this is just him desperately wanting to believe Eren, and so he did spend weeks and weeks going over that same memory over and over. He then introduces Ymir and does a small lore recap about how she builds the Titans and stuff, but what I absolutely love here are all of those shots of her just walking around. It feels so surreal and otherworldly. This is supposed to be the god of this universe, the thing that enabled all the destruction we saw throughout the series. But it's just a little girl, silently marching on and on, diligently working away as if they weren't even there. But Zeke then turns to his lie, or the final test, telling Eren to command Ymir. Eren finally notices the chains, which Zeke makes a point of saying that he's glad that he finally noticed, which I think is already meant to be a sign of him knowing that Eren was going to betray him. As in, he immediately noticed that Eren's focus was on the paths. He was going to act without Zeke the moment he came here. We even get these extremely drawn out shots of Eren just standing there, watching. Fully admit I might be hugely overanalyzing here, but it really does feel like the direction just drags out a few of the scenes to just make you ever so slightly uncomfortable as the rest of the episode unfolds. Something about the timing is off. Something about the way they interact is all off. Eren doesn't quite hit the beats you would normally expect in a conversation. All of it is just slightly wrong, and we'll of course see why very shortly. Zeke also lies about the whole vow to renounce war, saying that's why he has the chains, again telling Eren that they have to go through with their plan.
Do you seriously believe I'd euthanize the Eldian people? Eren, what kind of person do you take me for?
And just like that, we see the final duality of two brothers. Eren just confirmed his worst fear. Zeke just lost his little brother, the only person who seemed to truly understand him. He failed as a brother. He failed to save him from this hell, to fix the sins of Grisha. This is also why I think his appearance is like a scraggly, unkept nomad, by the way. I think he's meant to seem almost unnaturally desperate.
Why? Why won't you end it? 'Cause I have a right to live in the world I was born to.
This continues that recurring theme that Carla started, the idea that everyone is special for no other reason than having been born in the first place. We saw Willy echo the same thing, which rattled Eren big time, aka that ideology never changed. But with Zeke, which was obviously before Willy, we saw him say the exact opposite, saying the world is not their birthright and that it is a hell to be saved from. This is just putting all that together. Eren didn't catch the ball. That ideology never changed. He still believes that this world is theirs and that they were born free for no other reason than being here in the first place. If anyone threatens to take their freedom, he will take away theirs first. Just like with Zeke's ideology, that is of course just self-serving lies. Eren's story is all about these individual freedoms, but the rumbling is not about the freedom of others. It's about achieving his own dream. Between Eren and Zeke, there is that duality of internalizing guilt and hatred versus externalizing it. But we have gone over that half a dozen times already, so let's not do it again. Eren was never about this principled stance of freedom for everyone. He only cared about his friends and their freedom, not really the people of the island or the rest of the world. If Eren truly was this locked-in Giga Chad protecting the island and not just his friends, Armin would have been fed to Historia day one, and they would have the rumbling. That's it. They don't even need Zeke, they have full control of the Founding Titan, and no one would have messed with the island. But big surprise, all of their ideologies are self-serving. Even as Ymir walks past Eren, Zeke just begs to understand, asking if this is the result of their father's brainwashing. And as she falls to her knees, Zeke pulls his reverse Uno, saying Ymir only serves royal blood. And what is an excellent bit of irony from Isayama, Zeke calls Eren no more than a key. More on this in the episode 56 video, but the key Eren held was also deliberately undermined as they just kicked down the door to the basement, and the basement turned out to be, well, just a basement.
It was still a physical key that unlocked a little cupboard, yes, but in terms of what it represented, that neat and tidy symbol was undermined and replaced with just forceful drive. And the same thing is true here. Eren, the literal key bearer who had it dangling around his neck for the entire first half of the story, seems to be nothing more than a key himself. Obviously, Eren still managed to win over Zeke, but in a way, he still ends up being just a slave to a preordained dream, a key for hatred and destruction that came before him. He was the thing that simply enabled society's rage to manifest in the rumbling. There's also a bunch of confusion about how Ymir's servitude of royal blood actually works. We'll yap about it again with the memories episode, but the short version is this. Fundamentally, she serves any Eldian with royal blood. Very, very importantly though, this is not really a biological or otherwise hard-set rule. She serves the lineage of royalty entirely of her own free will, which is obviously the ultimate form of everyone being a slave to something, even if it is a primordial god. On paper, she has free will, but just like with all the other characters we've talked about before, in practice it's very debatable or outright non-existent. For thousands of years, she portrayed her as that little slave girl who sought connection, even if it meant being an eternal slave to someone long past. Again, the whole Ymir psychology stuff will follow later, but she will actually follow Eren and Mikasa because she sees herself in them. That's the part of Eren's story that is about these individual freedoms. That's why we see him break free of the chains that realistically are binding him with some kind of godlike power. He breaks free of them, and that's when he connects with Ymir. That is that connection, and then Mikasa obviously completes that story. So, super TLDR, she serves royalty until someone can either convince her that royalty doesn't exist, or someone can just fill the gap that royalty was meant to serve, which in her case was very, very big loneliness and sadness and just looking for connection. Which then takes us to the final and arguably some of the most important scenes of the entire story. Chains appearing around Eren's wrists. For someone who always yaps about freedom, Eren has a whole collection of scenes that depict him as chained or like a puppet or otherwise trapped, but the paths become a personification of everything we've seen in this story. Eren's story started with the entrapment behind the impregnable walls. He inherited the hatred of generations as his father put the key around his neck. For his entire life, he tried to break free of that burden, but eventually, here he stands with those same chains. Everyone is a slave to something. That's jumping ahead though. As of now, we circle back to the theme of a brother's love for one last time. Even as Zeke recognizes his betrayal, he still says that this is not his fault, saying both of them are just tragic victims of that vile father. He promises to not abandon him and that he will fix him with the Founder's power. Even now, he holds on to belief that he can protect his little brother. He delays attaining his own dream for as long as he needs to. He delays saving the world simply because he wants to understand. He might not have known Eren for long, but their past binds them, and in a odd way, he feels just as responsible for him as someone like Armin or Mikasa. Very different from the Galliard or Grice brothers, but also somehow exactly the same.
And with that, that is episode 78. We are officially in the complete insanity stretch of episodes of the final season, very much akin to Return to Shiganshina, and man, these videos are very daunting to put together. There's a lot of stuff in these episodes. Also, since we're already in the paths, I might as well share some future memories with you. I've been cooking up a few extra Attack on Titan videos. The problem is, like, what-if scenarios and stuff like that, visuals is a big problem because, well, it's a what-if, there is no what-if Attack on Titan. But we'll figure something out because these are videos I kind of want to do, not because I want to explore the what-if, but rather to explore what made Attack on Titan good, in a weird way, right? I'll talk about it more there, but one of the wonderful things about exploring what-if scenarios with Attack on Titan is realizing that they are impossible. That's the way Isayama wrote this story. That's what makes it great. But anyway, if I ever do actually end up putting them together, you'll see what I mean. So with that, I want to say a massive thank you to our current patrons and YouTube members who allow me to produce even more of these for you all. Without you, there'd be a whole lot less of my ramblings, so seriously, thank you. Other than that, I want to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.